passage to you guys, which is something I don't usually do, but it's a passage I came across, and it just really hit me. So I want to read it and talk about it a little bit. It's from Epictetus, I believe I'm pronouncing his name right. One of the original Stoics. If you're familiar with Stoicism, Ryan Holiday's made it really popular today. Marcus Aurelius is another famous Stoic. But here's the passage. So apologies, I'm gonna read for a second. How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself, and in no instance bypass the discriminations of reason? You've been given the principles that you ought to endorse, and you have endorsed them. What kind of teacher, then, are you still waiting for in order to refer your self-improvement to him? You are no longer a boy, but a full-grown man. If you are careless and lazy now, and keep putting things off and always deferring the day after which you will attend to yourself, you will not notice that you are making no progress, but you will live and die as someone quite ordinary. From now on, then, resolve to live as a grown-up who is making progress, and make whatever you think best a law that you never set aside. And whenever you encounter anything that is difficult or pleasurable or highly or lowly regarded, remember that the contest is now. You are at the Olympic Games. You cannot wait any longer, and that your progress is wrecked or preserved by a single day and a single event. This is how Socrates fulfilled himself, by attending to nothing except reason in everything he encountered. And you, although you are not yet a Socrates, should live as someone who at least wants to be a Socrates. That quote speaks to me on so many levels. Now, it's a long quote, right? It's a long passage, and there's multiple parts of it. But maybe I'll break down the parts that speak to me. I mean, obviously, it gets right to it. It cuts right to the heart of it with how long are you going to wait before you demand the best of yourself, and in no instance bypass the discriminations of reason. I love the idea of how long you're going to wait to be the best of yourself, right? Demand the best of yourself. Because for me, and I guess I should only speak for me, that's something I do put off. I do think, yeah, I'm a good person. I think I could do something great, or I could be great in some way eventually. But how long are you going to wait until you demand it now, right? And this idea of bypassing the discriminations of reason I love, because logic, which is my guiding light, tells you it makes no sense to wait a second longer. Yet I keep bypassing reason in some way. This idea then that you've been given the principles you ought to endorse, and you've endorsed them. You know it. You know what you're supposed to do. You have the principles, right? Again, this question, why aren't you acting? You have all the information you need. And then it asks, are you waiting for a teacher, right? What kind of teacher are you waiting for that's going to do this for you? Why are you waiting for a teacher? And then you're not a boy, you're a full-grown man. Again, you don't need to be waiting anymore. You're not a kid, you don't need a teacher. Logic tells you, you have the principles, everything's there for you to do what you know you should be doing. Why aren't you doing it? Answer the question, right? And then it goes on, if you're careless and lazy and keep putting things off till the next day, you won't notice that you're not making progress. And I think that's an important point, right? We let it slip and we tell ourselves, we'll get there. Maybe we're even getting there. Eventually, we'll really focus on it. Eventually, we'll really demand the best of ourselves. Not today, but we're slowly getting there. And you don't allow yourself to understand, no, you're not. You're making no progress towards that. And this line hits me pretty hard then. If you keep putting things off, you won't notice you're making no progress, but you'll live and die as someone quite ordinary. And if I'm being totally honest, for me, that might be the greatest fear, being quite ordinary. I struggle with this and I grapple with it because I think there's good in it, but there's also bad in it. But this idea of not standing out, of not being someone special or unique is something that I fear deeply. So that threat to me of you're just going to be somebody quite ordinary, that hits hard. So, okay, now you know that. So from now on, this moment on, right now on, resolve to live as a grown-up, to make progress. And then I really like this line, and make whatever you think best a law that you never set aside. Because this is the solution, right? You have all the information, you have everything you need, you're a grown-up, enough's enough. Make whatever you think best a law that you will never set aside. Because that's what it takes. Figure out what you want, what you think is best, what I often refer to as thoughtfully authentic, but whatever you know is best, the thing that you already know that he's getting at here, and make it a law. Make it what you do, and you never set it aside. And whenever you encounter anything difficult, right, or pleasurable, either or, high or low regard, whatever it is, Remember, the contest is now. This part, really, right? You are at the Olympic Games. Life is the Olympic Games. This idea that I'm waiting for something else, what the fuck are you waiting for? This is it. You're in the Olympics. Imagine being in the Olympics, right? Imagine you're a sprinter and you're at the Olympics and you're at the starting line. It's the 100-meter dash, whatever it is. You've been training, right? This is it. And you think, not this race. This race isn't that big of a deal. I'll really focus on it later. What do you mean? This is it. And so often we convince ourselves this isn't it. The Olympic Games is still to come. No. This is it. You're at the Olympic Games. You can wait no longer. And the idea that your progress is wrecked or preserved by a single day or a single event, that one I struggled with when I first read it, because I wanted to say, that can't be, right? A single day, a single event, that can't wreck our progress. And in some ways it can't, right? We can overcome if we have a bad day, if we don't deliver on a certain day or a certain event. It's more about the mindset, though. If you allow your mindset to tell you that, this doesn't really matter. Tomorrow I'll get to it. There's truth that you could, but the fact that your mind is there says you probably won't. And you're going to live and die a very ordinary life, right? A quite ordinary life. That mindset, you cannot allow it. This is the Olympic Games. You can wait no longer. This day, this event, it matters. And then the topper for me is how he ends it, which I really enjoyed and wasn't expecting. This reference to Socrates, because Socrates is somebody I admire so deeply and so much for various reasons. But this is how Socrates fulfilled himself, by attending to nothing except reason in everything he encountered. He figured out what he thought was best and made it a law that he never put aside. Reason is king for him, right? Reason is the guiding light. And although you're not yet a Socrates, you should aspire to be one. You should aspire to get to that point where you figure out what matters most and you live it every day, like every day is the Olympic Games. Nothing in here is groundbreaking. Nothing in here is stuff that I don't know, and that's the point. You've been given the principles, right? You've been given the principles that you ought to endorse, and you've endorsed them. I know all these things, but sometimes you need a reminder worded in just the right way, saying just the right things, right? Someone who dies, someone quite ordinary, right? They die with quite an ordinary life. Some of those words you need to hear. And for me, this passage speaks to me deeply. Now, TBD if I actually act on it, right? Do I do it? Do I, from now on, resolve to live that life of making progress and recognizing today's the Olympic Games and figure out what's best and make that a law that I don't set aside? We'll find out. But if I don't, there's really not many excuses to be made after this. And that's what I love, right? Because again, logic reigns supreme here. The logic of this passage is sound. And if I was to dispute it now, I would be doing exactly that. I would be bypassing the discriminations of reason. And that's something I say isn't allowed.